right now on the Daily Debrief.
The only thing she mentioned to me that she was a mean girl.
Police say a defendant's mother talked trash about the 9-year-old girl her son is accused of killing. Also,
do you expect this family to ever hear from her again?
No.
a relative testifies against a man accused of working with his wife to make his girlfriend disappear. And another sexual misconduct accusation against NFL player Antonio Brown, as another former NFL player gets in trouble with the law. Plus, another court hearing for Britney Spears after her father steps down from managing some of her affairs. The Daily Debrief recaps the day in court. It's Monday, September 16th.
And good evening, everybody. We begin tonight with the death penalty trial of a Florida man accused of killing a 9-year-old girl. Felicia Williams disappeared in 2014 and her naked body later turned up on a causeway in Old Tampa Bay. Defendant Granville Ritchie, who goes by Trevor, is accused of sexually assaulting the girl, beating her, and strangling her to death. Prosecutors say he put the girl's body in a suitcase at one point to move it. The state's key witness in this case is Eboni Wiley. Prosecutors say she helped cover up what Granville Ritchie is accused of doing and of coming up with a lie to tell the police to throw them off course. This is that alleged lie.
When you spoke with Eboni Wiley at that time in the parking lot of the Burger King restaurant, she told you that she had been with Felicia Williams.
Yes.
By herself in a friend's apartment.
Yes.
And that she had left Felicia Williams in the living room watching a movie.
Yes.
And that she went to take a shower.
Yes.
And that when she came back from taking a shower, Felicia Williams was gone.
Yes.
And that she assumed that she had left the apartment and walked away.
Yes.
The criminal case against Eboni Williams could put her behind bars for 5 years, but she is speaking out against Granville Ritchie, this defendant. Williams took the stand and said the defendant picked her up with the victim to get fast food. He then took them back to his apartment where she took drugs and then left to buy weed.
When I confirmed with him that, my granddaddy got some weed over there, I asked, I told Felicia to come on, which is Sugar Plum. I told her to come on, and he was like, no, you don't have no license, and you finna go and get some weed so I could watch her. And I asked Sugar Plum, and she was okay, and she said, yeah. And I said, I'll be right back.
So it was the defendant's decision for you to keep her there so that she wouldn't be in a car with you who didn't have a license or
Yes, ma'am.
who had marijuana.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you concerned at all about leaving her with somebody that she had never met before?
No, I wasn't concerned. I was and I wasn't concerned. Because how he made me feel comfortable on the first night I met him and how he made me feel when we went to go and pick up Sugar Plum. So it was like he had that concern of like a father figure. Like, that's how I felt.
Eboni Wiley said she called the defendant, who told her to take the victim to CVS to buy candy, but when she went to the store, no one there had seen the victim. When she came back to the apartment, she said the defendant was sweating.
He ain't had no shirt on. He looked like he was sweating, like he was just, and I looked up as I was driving. I'm like, damn, what is going on? So that's when I was about to start panicking, like, why you let her go to the store? She already ate, and he was like, I don't know. She really wanted some candy. And I was like, I want to pray. And I was like, I need to get in the closet and pray.
Okay. So why did you need to go in the closet
Because
and pray?
I was getting ready to panic, knowing that I was high and I was trying to just calm down. And I went in the car. He said, you go in my mom's room in her closet and pray. And I just stand there, got on my knees and started praying. So I came out. He was rolling a blunt, and I took a drink, and he proceeded sexual towards me, and we had sex.
And where is it that you had sex that time?
Right there in the front room floor. Right there in the front room floor.
Was that the room that has the couches in it?
The front room, yes.
Okay. At any time when you were there, did you look around the apartment for Felicia?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you ever go out on the back porch and look for her?
No, I did not.
Anywhere? Did you ever go to the other closet, the spare bedroom closet, and look for her?
No, I did not.
Finally, this co-defendant said Granville Ritchie guilted her into lying to the victim's parents.
He told me to tell her parents that it wasn't no male in the house, and then he told me that he's telling his mom was in the house, a female in the house.
Okay, so why did that whole conversation happen, and why is he telling you to say that there's no male in the house?
To make me seem like I wasn't no bad person leaving her, and he told her to go to the store.
Was he telling you that you would be viewed as a bad person?
Yes, ma'am.
That if you had left Felicia there with a man, that you would be viewed as the bad person?
Yes, ma'am.
If you weren't going to be allowed to say that there was a man there at the house, what was the story going to be then?
That it was a woman there, and she left out the door. I took a shower, and she left out the door. That was the lie that I told her in the beginning.
Okay, so who came up with the story to say that you were taking a shower and that Felicia left out the door when you were taking?
I think I said that because he told me that let them know there's a woman in the house.
Why did he tell you to let them know that there was a woman in the house?
Because I won't be viewed as a godmother. That I left her with him, and he was unresponsible in letting her go to the store.
Police were trying to deconstruct the various stories told by that particular witness. Meanwhile, a detective testified that there were signs that something, perhaps a suitcase, had been dragged across the carpet.
Well, we both noticed that there were drag marks. Something looked to be dragged from the patio area back in through the kitchen.
Would those drag marks be in the area, let me point with my finger, these areas here?
Yes, sir.
So across basically, for the record, the middle of the photograph, going from the bottom, towards the top of the photograph, towards the bottom of the photograph. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Another detective said it was difficult to get information from the defendant's mother.
Very brief information.
Was she cooperative during your interview?
She didn't appear to want to speak with me, but she did answer my questions.
What was her demeanor?
She was upset that we were at her apartment, not her apartment, at her place of work, asking her about the investigation.
Had you told her, or had you called her back after looking through the apartment and let her know you were coming down there?
I don't recall if we did or not.
Did she describe Felicia Williams at all to you?
The only thing she mentioned to me that she was a mean girl. That's the only description she gave.
Okay, let's look back at key testimony from earlier in this case from the victim's mother, who described how her daughter, whom she called Sugar Plum, went missing.
I questioned her, and I asked her, I said, well, what do you mean about Felicia's missing? And she was like, I don't know, she's missing. I said, where were you all? And she told me that they were in Temple Terrace. And I said, well, where you're at now? And she said they was on Lake in front of the liquor store, which is in Belmont Heights.
And so when you asked Ebony where she was at that moment, she had told you she was in Belmont Heights?
Yes.
And was Charlicia with her at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Did Ebony tell you anything else in that phone conversation that you recall?
No, all I said was, you mean to tell me you in Belmont Heights and you left my baby way back in Temple Terrace? And she didn't say anything. So I told her, I said, well, you need to beat me over there. And I said, I have to involve the law enforcement. So, and she said she knew.
Joining me here in New York are Liz Crotty and Michael Bryant. So Liz, we've got this key witness here with this story that, I went out to get marijuana, and then when I came back, the girl was gone, and then we came up with a story that she went to get candy at CVS. I mean, there's all these stories flying all over the place here.
Well, I think there's two things. When you're lying about someone, a 9-year-old who's wandered off to go get candy and you went to go get marijuana, that's one lie. But when you find out that child never wandered off and that she's now dead, you're like, well, I lied because I was lying to cover up my own, you can't really, lying to, she didn't want to lie about a death. I mean,
there's so many layers of it that's hard to get through. Michael Bryant, we've got a witness up here who's a co-defendant. Do we believe what she says?
I'd like to. I'm trying to find a reason to believe her, but I hope the jury's having a better luck keeping the lies straight, because it's a mess. And I think the defense could clearly just say, look, you got to deal with the cops to testify to help them get the defendant. So, you know, why should we believe you now? Should we believe lie 1, 2, or 3, or what you're telling us now?
Okay, do we believe the picture that allegedly shows the suitcase that the defendant is said to have had the girl's body encased in to get it out of the place?
Well, I think we know there's a suitcase. I don't know that we know yet if it's the suitcase. We see bits and pieces of a broken suitcase. Again, those dots have not been connected.
Also watching these cases with us are Judge Ashley Wilcott and forensic death examiner Joseph Scott Morgan. So, Joseph, what do the forensics tell us about this case? Do we have anything forensically that can help us figure out who's telling the truth here?
I don't know that we necessarily do. A lot of it's circumstantial, Aaron, and, you know, we can put the girl, seemingly the victim, with the accused, you know, and the witness testifies to this. Again, we have to draw her testimony into question. Let's don't forget, she has openly admitted that she's under the influence of a hallucinogen. She talked about being on MDA, ecstasy. And so this is going to impact her ability. She's also been drinking. You know, she states that she took a shot of Hennessy. And this is all going on in the midst of all this when this girl turns up missing. So I think that taken on total, we have to kind of leave our minds open as to what actually went on.
Judge Ashley Wilcott here. We have this co-defendant testifying. She said, "Oh, I wasn't really promised anything." Is there a deal swimming around in the background here? Because it smells like there probably is.
I think there probably is of some type. Now, it doesn't mean that she's not going to serve time or have punishment, but I do think she's probably made an agreement. And now because listen, you heard her, she's throwing the defendant right under the bus, and it was his idea and what he did. And so I do think that she probably has some incentive to be honest if that's what she's now being on the stand.
Testimony in that case rolls along tomorrow. Now to other cases we're monitoring here at Law and Crime. A court hearing today in the conservator case involving singer Britney Spears. Her father stepped down as conservator after Spears' former husband, Kevin Federline, filed a restraining order against Spears' father. Federline said the father went after one of their children and shook him. Federline and Spears have a 70-30 custody split of their children, Us Weekly reports. A former NFL player is accused of trashing his Atlanta business and trying to make it look like a hate crime. Police arrested Edon Kaufman, who played for Washington, Dallas, and Arizona, and charged him with falsely reporting a crime, insurance fraud, and concealing a license plate. They say he ripped TVs off the walls of his own business and spray painted the walls with racist graffiti, including MAGA, the abbreviation of President Trump's campaign slogan. Sports Illustrated is digging into the past of NFL player Antonio Brown and has uncovered more possible evidence of sexual misbehavior. The publication cites an artist who refused to be named, who says Brown hired her to paint a mural in his home, then approached her naked and tried to turn the relationship into something sexual. He only paid her for 2 days of work on the multi-day project, then ghosted her, in her words. A trainer is also suing Brown in civil court for allegedly raping her. And still ahead here on the Debrief, a break-in at an Iowa courthouse. Find out why the defendants say the judges were okay with it. Plus, a relative claims he has incriminating evidence against the South Carolina man accused of working with his wife to make his girlfriend vanish. That case and more when we return. A federal judge is leaving in place the so-called sweetheart non-prosecution agreement the government reached with alleged accomplices of millionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The same judge ruled that the federal government did not have to pay Epstein's victims for violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act. The judge decided that Epstein's August 10th suicide rendered a lawsuit by his victims in this particular area as moot. The ruling requires prosecutors to hold a court hearing, which allows victims to speak publicly and to be properly trained on their duties under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. A weird case now out of Iowa where 2 men were arrested for breaking into a courthouse and trying to access the court's computer system. The men produced actual evidence that they were hired by the judicial branch to test security systems on courtroom computers, which the judicial branch confirmed to the Des Moines Register. The issue is that the judicial branch says it had no idea the men would physically break into a building to do this test of the system. This one will take a while to straighten out legally. And a final pre-trial hearing today for the former Wisconsin judge made famous in the Netflix film Making a Murderer. Len Kaczynski was accused of stalking his court clerk, seen there, and was acquitted at trial. Still, a higher court removed him from the bench. In communicating with the clerk about final housekeeping matters, the clerk accused Kaczynski of violating a restraining order which remained in effect against him. He'll be tried at the end of this month on a series of those charges. The state has rested, and the defense now has the case of a South Carolina man charged in the disappearance of his girlfriend. Sidney Moorer was married when he began a side relationship with Heather Elvis, who has been missing now for almost 6 years. Sidney Moorer's wife, Tammy, was convicted in a separate trial last fall of kidnapping Heather Elvis. Before the state wrapped up its case, a relative testified that Sidney Moorer showed him a picture of Heather Elvis somehow restrained, but no one can find the picture.
Basically, that he showed me a picture on a phone.
He showed you his phone?
A phone. I don't know if it was his phone.
But he had it in his possession?
Yes, sir.
And who was? Do you know who that picture was of?
Pretty sure.
Who? Tell this jury who that picture was of.
Heather Elvis.
Had you ever? And you've seen pictures of her since?
Yes.
And so has that confirmed in your mind that the picture Sidney showed you was a picture of her?
Yes.
Did he tell you when that picture was taken?
No.
Okay. In that picture, did Heather look like she was under her own free will?
No.
Let me ask you this. After seeing that picture of Heather back in 2014, do you expect this family to ever hear from her again?
No.
Okay, if that witness is telling the truth, then the evidence is damaging. Listen, however, to this cross-examination.
Mr. DeMarino, what charges are you at the detention center for now?
A couple of counts of being any autos, possession of stolen firearm, possession of a stolen vehicle, and
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Credit card fraud.
What about your prior record? What have you been convicted of in the past, sir?
I got a burglary charge, and a couple drug charges.
Burglary charge and drug charges. Okay. Got a problem with drugs, Mr. DeMarino?
Yeah.
Addiction issue?
Yeah.
Your drug, is it heroin?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been dealing with that addiction, sir?
About 6 years.
When you and Sidney are standing there looking at this picture, did you happen to take a picture of the picture?
No.
Have you seen this picture since?
No.
Has the solicitor's office brought you a picture and said, hey, is this the picture you saw?
No.
Okay, the defendant's wife's sister took the stand for the defense and said she saw nothing unusual with her watching of the defendant's children. She was, keep in mind, caring for the defendant's children while the defendant and his wife were accused of making Heather Elvis disappear.
Yes, I sent their children home around 3:15.
Okay, tell us the circumstances. What do you mean you sent the children home at 3:15?
I was watching them earlier in that night, probably from, I would say it was still light when they brought them the day before, and up until 3:15.
Do you routinely watch the children?
Yes.
Okay, so you being asked to watch the kids that night was not something unusual, out of the ordinary?
Not at all.
Now, how do you know that you sent them home at 3:15?
Well, I know for sure because of a text message that I got at 3:10 saying that she was home. And what that indicates to me is to get the children ready and send them across our yard because she lives directly behind me.
Okay, and who did you receive this text message from at 3:10?
My sister's phone.
Okay. That would be Tammy's phone?
Yes.
And you said you sent them across the yard. What do you mean by that?
Their house is literally, it's on the same acre of land as mine. So they literally walk across a little path with stones and then they'll be on their porch.
Okay. And is it unusual for Sidney to pick up the kids around 3 in the morning?
No, they work late. So a lot of times they'll come home at those hours, but they always wanted the kids home so they could do their homeschool.
Okay, that's the word from the sister there. Let's go to the panel now. Judge Ashley Wilcott is here with Joseph Scott Morgan. So, Joseph, nothing unusual about just swinging over to pick up the kids at 3 o'clock in the morning on the night that you're accused of making your girlfriend disappear, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I'll tell you what, there's so many little intricacies involved in this case. It makes my head swim every time I hear. I really wonder how well this is performing in court. Is this narrative being played out in a manner in which it's easy to follow? Because it is kind of confusing.
Those little what ifs, and they're starting to pile up, though, bit by bit. Judge Ashley Wilcott, circumstantial cases oftentimes flow this way.
Sure they do, but one thing to keep in mind in this case is the prosecution said from the get-go, guess what? They did a really effective job, these defendants, either getting rid of the evidence, destroying the evidence, hiding the evidence, and so they're left with a whole lot of, well, there was a picture, but nobody's seen it, we don't have it. Is the jury going to believe that or not, or is that too circumstantial, so to speak, Aaron? That's what they're going to have to decide.
Well, look, I mean, let's bring this into the in-house panel here in New York. Michael Bryant, when you have a picture that allegedly exists, where is the deep dive into the deleted stuff and the phones, the computers, this, that, the other thing to say, okay, there's the picture, because otherwise the state doesn't have it beyond a reasonable doubt.
You have to believe that if it really exists, it would be found, as you suggest, electronically. It's a scrap of paper, it's something, and then the guy who's testifying to it, okay, so he's got a couple of issues. Doesn't mean he's not believable, but come on, it's tough.
Liz Cruddy, what do you make of this? I mean, you've got the old line that, okay, so I've got a drug issue, I have this issue, I have that issue, but I'm not a liar. And I was almost waiting for that to come out of that particular witness.
I mean, I don't think he really convinces the jury of proof beyond reasonable doubt, just in his makeup and how he comes out in the prison wear. I mean, this is a person who's saying something, who knows what's happening. I think they would have had a stronger case, not even including a phantom picture.
And look, this is the key piece of evidence that the state really needs to try to link this up. And again, it's asking a lot for the jury, Michael. Maybe the jury will say, okay, I'm inclined to believe this guy because the other little pieces fit together. But the state wrapped this case up relatively early. We're going to keep an eye on it to see how the defense does. Thanks a lot to the panelists tonight here on The Debrief. Our live trial coverage resumes tomorrow at 9 o'clock Eastern here on the Law and Crime Network. The Debrief, of course, back at 5 o'clock with our recap of cases nationwide. We'll see you then.